There are mysteries in One Piece that never stop fascinating fans, and among the greatest of them all are the Devil Fruits. These strange, legendary sources of supernatural power have shaped the course of the story, transformed the destinies of entire characters, and redefined what power even means in Oda's world. But now, chapter 1175 has taken that mystery to a completely different level, because what we've just learned doesn't only add a new detail to the lore, it potentially changes the way we understand the mythological foundation of One Piece itself. At the center of this revelation is the Ryu Ryu no Mi model Nidhogg, a devil fruit eaten by Loki, and one that once belonged to the mysterious god of war of Elbaph, a divine figure who vanished under unknown circumstances. And the more we examine this revelation, the more it starts to feel like Oda is pulling back the curtain on something much older, much deeper, and much more mythic than we ever imagined. As Jirul recounts the history of this legendary fruit, we discover that it was once possessed by a powerful divine warrior, a being referred to as the god of war, who wielded the mighty weapon known as Ragnir. But this was no ordinary deity. According to the story, this divine warrior rebelled. In a moment of defiance, the god of war transformed into a colossal black dragon and turned against the god of the sun. And in that cataclysmic clash, the god of war emerged victorious. That alone is already enormous, because in the world of One Piece, a direct conflict between two godlike entities, one of war, one of the sun, immediately suggests that the mythology behind devil fruits, Elbaph, and perhaps even the ancient world itself is far more complex than we thought. But the revelation doesn't stop there. We also learn that the spirit of the god of war's loyal servant, Ratatoskr the glacial squirrel, was said to have passed into the Ragnir hammer, becoming the guardian of the Nidhogg fruit. And that detail may be one of the most important pieces of the puzzle, because once you hear that, the implications begin to unfold almost immediately. The mention of the god of war and the god of the sun opens up an entirely new realm of possibilities for understanding the mythological framework of One Piece. These aren't random titles, they echo ancient pantheons, they evoke primordial conflict, they suggest that Oda may be drawing from multiple mythological traditions at once to build the deeper lore of his world. The most obvious parallel is Norse mythology. In Norse myth, Nidhogg is a monstrous dragon that gnaws at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. The resemblance to the Nidhogg fruit is impossible to ignore. A black dragon tied to mythic destruction, ancient forces, and sacred cosmic structures. This is not a superficial reference. It feels deliberate. It feels foundational. Then there's the presence of Ratatoskr, the mischievous squirrel that runs up and down Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. Its inclusion here further strengthens the idea that Oda is actively weaving Norse elements into the story of Elbaph, the giants, and the devil fruits. And once you think about Elbaph itself, the land of giants, warrior culture, ancient honor, and mythic importance, the Norse inspiration becomes even more striking. But Oda doesn't seem to be limiting himself to Norse mythology alone. The mention of the god of the sun and the god of war also resonates strongly with Shinto mythology. In Shinto belief, deities such as Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and Hachiman, the god of war, occupy prominent places in the divine order. That means the conflict described in chapter 1175 may not just be a Norse-inspired myth. It could be something broader, a fusion of ancient mythological structures where divine beings represent cosmic forces, ideological conflict, and world-shaping events. And that kind of struggle, a battle between gods with the fate of the world hanging in the balance, is something that appears again and again across many ancient mythologies. So what does all of this mean for the devil fruits themselves? Because maybe the biggest revelation in all of this isn't just the identity of the Nidhogg fruit, it's what the Nidhogg fruit may reveal about all devil fruits. If the spirit of Ratatoskr, the loyal servant of the god of war, merged with the Ragnir hammer, the very guardian of the Nidhogg fruit, then devil fruits may not be mere supernatural objects. They may be receptacles, vessels, containers for the spirits, souls, or essences of mythological beings. And if that's true, then devil fruits are not just powers. They are inheritances, echoes of ancient lives, fragments of entities that once shaped the world. This lines up remarkably well with theories that One Piece fans have had for years. For a long time, people have speculated that devil fruits might contain the souls or essences of ancient and powerful entities, that they are more than biology, more than mutation, more than random magic. And now, with this new information, those theories suddenly feel much more plausible, especially when you remember Vegapunk's mention of the 21 grams, the supposed weight of a soul. That detail always stood out, but in light of chapter 1175, it starts to feel even more significant. What if devil fruits are repositories of spiritual energy? What if each one preserves the essence of a mythological figure, creature, or forgotten divine being? That would explain a lot. It could explain why there are so many wildly different devil fruit abilities, why some powers feel almost symbolic, why some fruits seem to carry a deeper identity, a will, or a narrative role that goes beyond mere combat utility. And it could also explain why the creation of a devil fruit might require something far more complicated than we've assumed. Because the revelation that the Nidhogg fruit was once guarded by the Ragnir hammer, itself imbued with the spirit of Ratatoskr the glacial squirrel, implies that creating or preserving a devil fruit may involve a ritual or a technological process that binds the essence of a being to a physical object. And that changes everything. Because if devil fruits are the result of that kind of binding process, then each fruit may be the manifestation of a unique mythological spirit or entity, not random, not arbitrary, but deeply tied to ancient history. And the implications of that go far beyond the immediate events of the current arc. The connections between the Nidhogg fruit, the god of war, and the god of the sun open a massive new territory for the overarching story of One Piece. For example, the idea that the god of the sun was defeated by the god of war may shed light on the mysterious circumstances surrounding the death of the sun god Nika as recounted by Loki. And if that's true, then this isn't just mythological flavor text. This could be directly tied to one of the biggest mysteries in the entire series. Because Luffy currently possesses the fruit connected to Nika, and the true nature of that fruit is already tied to the ancient kingdom, the lost century, and the buried truths of history. So if the fall of the god of the sun is connected to the rise of the god of war, then the history behind Nika may be much darker, more complicated, and more mythologically loaded than we've assumed. And that naturally leads us to another massive question. What role do the giants of Elbaph play in all of this? Because the origin of the Nidhogg fruit and its connection to mythological figures tied to Elbaph suggests that the giants may have had a much greater role in the preservation or protection of these ancient powers. Could the giants have been the guardians of powerful devil fruits? Could they have been tasked with preventing these mythological abilities from being misused? Could Elbaph itself have been one of the key centers of ancient spiritual and divine history in the One Piece world? Those are not small questions. They go to the heart of what Elbaph may represent in the final saga. And the story becomes even more layered when we consider that the giants of Elbaph apparently revere both the god of war and the god of the sun. That complicates everything. Because if both divine figures are honored, then the history between them may not be a simple story of good versus evil. It may have been a conflict of ideology, succession, betrayal, balance, or even a forgotten civilizational fracture. And then there's another fascinating idea. What if the kingdom of Elbaph itself was named after the god of war? And what if the Atom Tree and the Tree of the Sun, Ava, were not just symbolic landmarks, but manifestations of the physical forms of these deities? If that were true, it would add an astonishing layer of depth to the world building of One Piece. It would mean that the geography, religion, and history of the world are all intertwined with divine remnants and mythic memory. And then there's Ratatoskr again. The possible involvement of the glacial squirrel Ratatoskr in the freezing of the ancient giants of Elbaph raises even more questions about how these mythological beings may have actively shaped the world's history. Were these entities merely symbols, or were they real forces with direct influence over civilizations, landscapes, and the fate of entire races? And now, all of this brings us back to Loki, because the revelations surrounding the Nidhogg fruits and the God of War also cast a new light on Loki himself, the current wielder of this extraordinary devil fruit. According to the chapter, Loki's unique eyes and his heritage may be the key to understanding why the Ragnir hammer, the guardian of the Nidhogg fruit, allowed him to consume it in the first place. That suggests that Loki's connection to this fruit is not accidental. It may be ancestral, it may be spiritual, it may be destined. It's possible that Loki's lineage is directly tied to the God of War who once wielded the Nidhogg fruit, and if that's the case, then his eyes, or some deeper part of his being, may resonate with that ancient deity. That would explain why the Ragnir hammer, which was said to protect the fruit until a worthy successor emerged, deemed Loki worthy of inheriting its power. And if Loki truly is the successor to a divine lineage, then his role in the story may be far bigger than we've imagined, especially because the Nidhogg fruit is identified as a mythical zone, a fruit with the ability to transform its user into a colossal black dragon. And according to the chapter, the size and strength of the dragon form are directly linked to the size and power of the user. Think about what that means. If a giant, or even an ancient giant, fully wields the Nidhogg fruit, then the result could be a being of unimaginable destructive force. Not just powerful, not just dangerous, but catastrophic. A living myth. A walking apocalypse. A dragon large enough to redefine the scale of power in One Piece. And that possibility alone has enormous consequences for the ongoing narrative, because the revelations surrounding the Nidhogg fruit and its mythological origins don't just enrich the lore, they create entirely new possibilities for future arcs. The ties to the ancient kingdom, the lost century, and the conflict between the God of War and the God of the Sun suggest that Oda may be setting up something much larger than a localized Elbaph story. For instance, if the Nidhogg fruit and its wielders were involved in the events of the Lost Century, that could help explain the true nature of the ancient kingdom and the reasons for its downfall. Likewise, the role of the giants and their relationship to these mythological beings may become increasingly central as the story moves forward. That could lead to a major alliance between the Straw Hat Pirates and the giants of Elbaph, or perhaps even a major confrontation shaped by ancient loyalties and forgotten divine conflicts. And beyond that, if devil fruits really are vessels for the spirits and essences of powerful ancient beings, then the power structure of the entire world may need to be reinterpreted, because suddenly, devil fruit users are not just people with abilities. They may be inheritors of something ancient, something sacred, something dangerous. And that would have enormous implications for everything still to come in One Piece. As the series continues to peel back the layers of its world, the revelations surrounding the Nidhogg fruit may prove to be one of the most important clues in understanding the deeper secrets of the entire universe Oda has created. In the end, chapter 1175 doesn't just give us a cool new mythological detail, it opens a door A door into the mythological depths of One Piece. A door into the hidden relationship between gods, giants, souls, weapons, and devil fruits. A door into a world where ancient myths may have been transformed into living powers. And that is exactly why this revelation feels so exciting, because Oda once again shows that One Piece is not just an adventure story. It is a vast narrative tapestry, one that draws from different cultural traditions, ancient symbols, and mythic archetypes to build something that feels both familiar and entirely original. The connections between the Nidhogg fruit, the god of war, the god of the sun, Ratatoskr, Loki, and the giants of Elbaph may end up reshaping the entire way we understand the story's larger narrative. And right now, we're left with more questions than answers. But in One Piece, that's usually when things get the most interesting. So as fans, all we can do is embrace these mythological depths, follow the threads Oda has placed before us, and wait for the next chapter in this epic journey, where the secrets of the Nidhogg fruit, the ancient deities, and the hidden history of the world may finally be revealed. And one thing is certain, these revelations have only strengthened One Piece's status as a masterpiece of modern storytelling. A story that blends fantasy with mythology, mystery with emotion, and wonder with world building in a way that few series have ever achieved. So, keep your eyes on Elbaph, keep your eyes on Loki, and above all, keep your eyes on the truth hidden inside the devil fruits. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more analysis, theories, and in-depth studies about One Piece. And follow our social media channels for more One Piece content and updates.